The very large array stretched across the high desert like a congregation of steel giants. Their massive dishes
The
turned
readings are
toward the
spiking.
heavens.
Look, I see it. That's
In
not
the
in the
control
models.
room of the
We need to
southernmost
reroute
facility,
power. Now,
a single
on it.
lamp burned against the darkness.
It's okay. I'm right
Iris
here.
Hawthorne sat cross-legged on the cold floor,
I know.
her small
We'll get
hands
through it
clutching
together.
a worn-stuffed rabbit.
You have
She
to
was
listen
6
to
years
me.
old,
It's not
too young
safe
to
here.
understand why
You
Daddy
need to
worked so
leave
many
now
nights.
before it's too
Too
late.
young to know that the universe was
This
about
ends
to speak.
now.
She
You
sang
don't have the
softly
guts.
to herself, her voice
Try
pure
me.
and sweet
Back off.
in the humming silence of machines. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Dr. Malcolm Hawthorne glanced at his daughter, guilt tightening his chest. 35 years old, separated from his wife for 6 months now. The divorce would be finalized next spring, custody every other week. This was supposed to be his week. But the overnight shift paid overtime, and a soon-to-be single father needed every dollar. How I wonder what you are. He turned back to his monitors, radio telescopes sweeping the sky, searching for patterns in the cosmic static, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI. Most colleagues called it a waste of taxpayer money. Malcolm called it hope. The signal came at 11:52 p.m. Not the random noise of dead stars, not the predictable pulse of spinning pulsars. This was structured, mathematical, deliberate. His fingers froze over the keyboard. Up above the world so high, the waveform scrolled across his screen. Prime numbers, geometric sequences, information density that shouldn't exist in nature. Malcolm's heart hammered against his ribs. 30 years of searching, 10,000 hours staring at static. And now on a Wednesday night in October, with his daughter singing nursery rhymes behind him, contact. Like a diamond in the sky. He reached for the red phone. Protocol dictated immediate notification, chain of command, verification teams. The world would need to know. His hand stopped halfway. The signal wasn't random chatter. His decryption software was already breaking it down. Military encryption patterns, tactical frequencies, and underneath it all, a carrier wave that suggested active transmission between multiple points. Not a greeting, a conversation. Daddy, Iris's voice small and uncertain. Why did you stop typing? Malcolm turned. His daughter's face glowed in the monitor light, innocent and trusting. She clutched her rabbit tighter. Just listening, sweetheart. To the stars. Yeah, his voice cracked. To the stars. The decryption algorithm churned through the data. Words began forming, not English, but the computer recognized linguistic patterns, subject-verb structure, conditional clauses, command syntax, military language. Malcolm watched as the translation software struggled to find context. Proper nouns appeared, species names he'd never heard, coordinates that didn't match any human star chart, and then buried in a tactical report, 3 words that turned his blood to ice. Primitive species integration, followed by a number, 47. Malcolm sat perfectly still. His scientific mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was a hoax, some graduate student's elaborate prank. Maybe his equipment was malfunctioning. Maybe he'd finally lost his mind after too many lonely nights in the desert. But the signal kept coming. Ship positions, fleet movements, resource allocation for compliance operations, and a catalog. Dear God, a catalog, listing species by technological level, threat assessment, integration status, 47 entries, 47 civilizations, all marked absorbed. Iris had stopped singing. She watched her father with wide eyes. Daddy, are you okay? Malcolm realized his hands were shaking. He closed the decryption window, saved the raw data to an external drive, locked down his terminal. Then he did something that would haunt him for the next 30 years. He erased the original logs. Daddy. He knelt beside his daughter, taking her small hands in his. Her fingers were so tiny, so fragile. Iris, honey, can you keep a secret? She nodded solemnly, 6 years old and already understanding that grown-ups sometimes needed promises. Sometimes, Malcolm whispered, the best thing we can do is be very, very quiet. Can you do that for me? Like hide and seek. Exactly like hide and seek. He pulled her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. We're going to play the longest game ever, and we can't let anyone know we're playing. Okay. Okay, Daddy. He held her for a long moment, staring past her at the monitors still tracking signals from the stars. Somewhere out there, ships moved between worlds. Species rose and fell. And Earth primitive, little Earth had no idea it was being watched. Malcolm made his choice in that moment. Not the choice a scientist should make, not the choice protocols demanded, but the choice a father makes when he looks at his daughter and realizes the universe is far more dangerous than bedtime stories ever suggested. He would not report the signal. He would prepare. Major James Thaddeus Fletcher ran the obstacle course like the devil himself was on his heels. 28 years old, Marine Corps, Force Recon. He joined right out of high school at 18. 10 years of service now. Force Recon for the last 3. One tour in Afghanistan. Chest full of medals he never wore. His CO called him relentless. His ex-wife called him obsessed. Fletcher called it discipline. He cleared the final wall boots, hitting packed earth with military precision. Sweat dripped from his jaw. His lungs burned. Good. Pain meant you were still fighting. Major Fletcher. He turned. A civilian stood at the edge of the course. Thin build, wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of man who looked like he'd never held a rifle in his life. Help you with something. My name is Malcolm Hawthorne. I need 5 minutes of your time. Fletcher grabbed a towel, studying the stranger. Something in the man's eyes. Exhaustion that ran deeper than missed sleep. The look of someone carrying weight the world couldn't see. I don't do interviews, Dr. Hawthorne. How did you, Tim? You have chalk dust on your cuffs, academic. But you're here at 0600, which means you drove through the night. Desperate. That makes you either crazy or legitimate. Fletcher tossed the towel aside. You've got 3 minutes. Malcolm didn't flinch. What if I told you I've been tracking extraterrestrial military communications for 10 years? Fletcher's expression didn't change. I'd say you wasted a long drive. And what if I told you they're cataloging us, marking Earth as a future integration target? Now Fletcher paused. Integration. Their word for conquest. Malcolm pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Everything's on here. Signal analysis, decryption keys, ship movements, 10 years of data. I came to you because your service record shows something most soldiers don't have. What's that? You understand asymmetric warfare, how to fight enemies with superior firepower. Malcolm's hand trembled slightly as he held out the drive. How to win when you shouldn't be able to. Fletcher didn't take it. Why me? Because everyone else I've approached thinks I'm insane. Malcolm's voice cracked. And maybe I am, but I have a daughter, Major. She's 16 now, and I can't protect her from what's coming, not alone. The morning sun climbed over distant barracks. Soldiers jogged past their cadence calls echoing across the base. Normal military life. Routine. Order. Fletcher thought about his own failed marriage. Ended 2 years ago because he couldn't let go of the mission long enough to build a family. He didn't have kids, never would, but he understood the look in Malcolm's eyes, a father's fear. Show me, Fletcher said quietly. They drove 3 hours into the desert, Malcolm's car rattling over dirt roads that barely qualified as paths. Finally, they stopped at what looked like an abandoned mining facility. Rusted equipment, broken windows. This is it, Fletcher asked. Malcolm didn't answer. He led Fletcher to a maintenance shed, pushed aside a stack of crates, and opened a floor hatch hidden beneath. Stairs descended into darkness. Fletcher followed every instinct, screaming caution. This was how soldiers died, following strangers into holes in the ground. The stairs ended in a steel door, military grade. Malcolm pressed his palm to a biometric scanner. Locks disengaged with hydraulic precision. The door swung open. Fletcher stepped inside and stopped. The facility stretched the length of a football field. Banks of computers lined the walls. Satellite uplinks, communications arrays. In the center, a massive holographic display showed the Milky Way galaxy with overlay data Fletcher didn't recognize. Jesus Christ. 10 years, Malcolm said softly, building this, piece by piece. Equipment bought from military surplus. Black market processors. Every dollar I could save. He walked to the main console. I've been listening, Major, and translating and learning. Fletcher moved deeper into the room. Professional assessment kicking in. This wasn't amateur hour. The setup rivaled NSA installations he'd seen. How much does this cost? Everything I have, everything I'll ever have. Malcolm pulled up a star chart. But look what it bought us. The display shifted. Ship icons appeared throughout the galaxy, hundreds of them. Different colors for different species factions. The Galactic Dominion, Malcolm explained. 3,000 years old. 12 primary species. Hundreds of client states. And Earth? He zoomed in on our solar system. We're in sector 7,439, listed as pre-contact primitive. Meaning we're on the list, just not high priority yet. Malcolm's fingers danced over the keyboard. But I've been tracking their expansion patterns. They're systematic, thorough. In approximately 20 years, maybe 30, they'll arrive at our doorstep. Fletcher stared at the alien ship positions. Military mind processing, tactical data. What's their doctrine? Overwhelming force backed by perfect intelligence. They catalog every species before contact. Know exactly what technology we have, what tactics we might use, how many ships we could field. Malcolm met Fletcher's eyes. They've never lost because they never fight fair. They fight prepared. So we prepare better. Exactly. Malcolm pulled up another screen. Detailed schematics of alien vessels, weapons specifications, shield frequencies. I've intercepted everything, Major. Their military communications aren't even encrypted well. They don't think anyone's listening. Fletcher leaned closer, studying a dreadnought-class vessel. Plasma cannons, organic armor, bio-integrated systems. Could we build this? No, we're decades behind in material science alone. Malcolm switched displays. But we don't need to match their technology. We need to understand it, know the weaknesses, exploit them. Asymmetric warfare. You fought insurgents in Afghanistan, enemies with better equipment, better funding, better everything. Malcolm's voice grew intense. How did you win? Fletcher thought back. Night raids, intelligence networks, turning enemy strengths into vulnerabilities. We knew the terrain, they didn't. We knew the people, they didn't. We were fighting for home. They were fighting for orders. Exactly. Malcolm gestured at the vast database around them. For 10 years, I've been building our intelligence network, learning everything about them while they know nothing about us. When they arrive, we'll know their ships better than they do, their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. Fletcher walked slowly around the facility, touching equipment, checking sightlines, evaluating defensive positions. His mind was already planning. You can't do this alone. I know. You need a team, specialists, engineers, linguists, military strategists. This is a 30-year project minimum. I know that too. Malcolm's shoulders sagged. That's why I came to you. I need someone who can build what I can't. A force capable of defending Earth when the time comes. Fletcher stopped at the holographic display, staring at the icons representing alien ships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. He thought about his ex-wife's last words. You care more about the mission than about me. She'd been right. Maybe that made him perfect for this. I'll need complete operational security, Fletcher said. Black budget financing. Recruits I can trust absolutely. And deniability. The government can't know. No one can. I have contacts. Military surplus suppliers, defense contractors who won't ask questions. Malcolm's voice trembled with hope. Can you really do this? Fletcher turned, studied the man who'd spent 10 years alone in the desert, listening to the stars, trying to save a world that thought he was crazy. I don't know, he said, honestly. But I know what happens if we don't try. Malcolm extended his hand. Then we have an understanding. Fletcher gripped it, felt the calluses of a man who'd worked himself to exhaustion. Saw the desperation of a father trying to protect his child. We'll need a name, something that captures the mission. I've already thought of one. Malcolm smiled weakly. Project Sentinel. We're the watchers, the ones who see danger coming while everyone else sleeps. Project Sentinel. Fletcher nodded slowly. How many people know about this? Just you and me, and my daughter, though she thinks I'm studying cosmic background radiation. Keep it that way. The fewer who know, the safer we all are. Fletcher looked around the facility again. I'll start recruiting next month. Small team initially. People I trust. We'll expand slowly. And if the Dominion arrives before we're ready, Fletcher's jaw tightened. Then we fight anyway. Outgunned, outmatched, and scared as hell. But we fight. They stood together in the underground facility, two men bound by a secret that would define the next 20 years of their lives. Above them, the desert stretched empty under an indifferent sun. And far above that, alien ships moved between the stars, cataloging worlds, planning integrations, never suspecting that one primitive planet had heard them coming. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and defeat. Malcolm Hawthorne lay in the bed, body wasted by pancreatic cancer. 65 years old, should have had decades left, but 30 years of stress, missed meals, and 70-hour work weeks had taken their toll. The doctors gave him 2 weeks, maybe 3. Fletcher sat beside the bed, ramrod straight, despite spending the last 48 hours in that chair. He was 48 now, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes. Still looked like he could run through a brick wall if the mission demanded it. You should eat something, Malcolm whispered. I'm fine. Liar, a weak smile. 20 years, James. Still can't take care of yourself. Learn from the best. They sat in silence. Outside the window, Albuquerque sprawled under a cloudless sky. Normal city, normal lives. No one knew that two men in a hospital room held the future of the species in their hands. The door opened. Iris Hawthorne entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. 36 years old now. Astrophysics, PhD. Brilliant mind hidden behind tired eyes that looked too much like her father's. Colonel Fletcher. She handed him coffee. Fletcher had made lieutenant colonel 5 years ago, though he'd officially retired from the Marines to focus on Project Sentinel full-time. When did you last sleep? What day is it? That's what I thought. She kissed her father's forehead. How are you feeling, Dad? Like I'm dying, sweetheart. Dad, it's okay. Malcolm's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. I've had 30 good years. Bonus time. Every day after 1998 was a gift. Iris glanced at Fletcher. Should I? Stay, Malcolm said. It's time she knew everything. Fletcher tensed. Malcolm, she's brilliant, James. Smarter than I ever was. And you're going to need her. He coughed, body shaking. Iris helped him drink water. I've kept secrets for 30 years. I'm tired of secrets. Fletcher stood, moved to the window, staring out at the city. This isn't the time. There won't be a better one. Dad, what's going on? Iris looked between them. Colonel Fletcher, what is he talking about? Fletcher didn't answer. His reflection in the glass showed a man wrestling with impossible choices. The stars talked back, Malcolm said softly. Iris went very still. What? 1998, October. You were singing Twinkle, Twinkle while I worked. His voice grew distant with memory. They talked back, Iris, and I heard them. Military communications from the Galactic Dominion. Plans for expansion. Species cataloging. Earth was on their list. Dad, the medication. He's not hallucinating, Fletcher said quietly. It's all true. Every word. Iris stared at him. You can't be serious. Fletcher pulled out his phone, showed her a video, satellite footage from last week. A debris field in the outer solar system. Wreckage that wasn't human. Ship fragments with writing in languages Earth had never seen. We've been preparing for 30 years, Fletcher said. Your father built an intelligence network that monitored every alien communication within 50 light years. I built a military force trained in asymmetric warfare against technologically superior enemies. 190 soldiers, global defense grid, kinetic weapons platforms hidden in orbital debris fields. Iris sat down slowly. Her hands trembled. That's why you were always gone, she whispered to her father. All those nights, those trips. The facility you said was for research. I'm sorry, baby. Tears ran down Malcolm's face. I wanted to tell you so many times, but knowledge is dangerous. The fewer who knew, the safer you were. Safer from what? From them. Malcolm gestured weakly at the ceiling. They're coming, Iris. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but the pattern analysis shows it. In the next decade, they'll arrive at Earth. And when they do, they'll offer us a choice. Integration or extinction. That's insane. It's mathematics. Fletcher pulled up his phone again. Showed her star charts, ship movement patterns, tactical projections. We've tracked 12 different species making contact with Earth's vicinity over the past 20 years. We've destroyed or disabled 8 of them. 0 human casualties. The galaxy is starting to notice us. You've been fighting a secret war in space. A secret defense, Fletcher corrected. We've never fired unless fired upon. Every engagement we offered peaceful withdrawal. Most refused. They died not understanding how primitives could see them coming. Iris put her head in her hands. This is too much. I know. Malcolm reached for her. But I'm dying, sweetheart. And someone needs to carry this forward. James can handle the military side, but we need someone who understands the science, the intelligence analysis, the predictive modeling. You want me to take over your work. I want you to survive what's coming and help others survive. He coughed again, worse this time. James, show her. Fletcher pulled out a tablet, opened encrypted files. Project Sentinel database. 30 years of signals intelligence. Ship schematics for 43 different alien species. Tactical analyses. Weakness assessments. Communication protocols. Everything your father compiled while the world slept. Iris scrolled through files with shaking hands. Engineering diagrams that would revolutionize human technology. Battle reports from engagements that never made the news. A complete catalog of a galactic civilization that Earth officially didn't know existed. How many people know about this, counting you 193? Fletcher's voice was flat, professional. Every one of them volunteered. Everyone understands they might die protecting a secret the world isn't ready to hear. We're not heroes, Iris. We're insurance. Against what? Against the day Earth has to choose between freedom and survival. Malcolm's breathing grew labored, and I wanted to make sure we could choose both. Malcolm Hawthorne died 3 days later. No fanfare, no state funeral. The obituary said he was a radio astronomer who'd spent his career studying cosmic background radiation. Colleagues called him dedicated. Students remembered him as passionate about the stars. None of them knew the truth. Fletcher stood at the graveside service dress uniform perfectly pressed. Iris stood beside him, eyes dry despite the grief. Around them, a handful of mourners who'd known Malcolm as a teacher, a colleague, a friend, not a savior. The priest spoke words about eternal rest and heavenly peace. Fletcher barely heard them. His mind was already racing ahead. Tactical assessments, resource allocation. Malcolm had been the brain of Project Sentinel, the intelligence analyst who could see patterns others missed. Now that brain was silent. When the service ended, Iris approached Fletcher. "Walk with me." They moved away from the grave, following a path between headstones. Spring air carried the scent of fresh-cut grass. "I've been going through his files," Iris said. "The database is extraordinary, but incomplete." "How so?" "He was tracking ship movements near our solar system, trying to predict when the Dominion would make official contact." She pulled out her tablet. "Look at this pattern. 7 different reconnaissance probes in the last 3 years, all from Sector 7439's administrative fleet." Fletcher studied the data. "Closer each time." "Yes, and the interval is decreasing. Mathematical progression suggests—" She trailed off. "Suggests what?" "They're coming, Colonel, not in 10 years, not in 5. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The Dominion's investigation fleet will arrive within 6 months. Maybe sooner." Fletcher stopped walking, stared at her. "You're certain?" "The pattern is clear. They know something destroyed those reconnaissance probes. They're sending a proper diplomatic mission to investigate. First contact is imminent. Then we need to accelerate the timeline." Fletcher's mind raced through contingencies. "How many people are at the facility?" "Dad had a skeleton crew, 5 technicians, all trustworthy. We need more. Engineers, translators, tactical analysts." He turned to face her. "I need you, Iris, not just to honor your father's memory, but because you're the only person who can interpret what he built. I'm not a soldier. Neither was he, but he fought the only way he knew how, with intelligence, preparation, patience." Fletcher's voice softened. "Your father gave 30 years so you could have a choice. Now it's time to make that choice." Iris looked back at Malcolm's grave. A simple headstone, dates of birth and death, nothing that hinted at the weight he'd carried. "What do you need me to do?" "Run the intelligence division, analyze the signals, predict their movements. Give us the advantage your father spent his life building." Fletcher extended his hand. "Help me finish what he started." She stared at his hand for a long moment. Everything in her life had led to this point, all her father's absences, all the times he'd looked at her with that sad, guilty expression, all the secrets. Now she understood. Iris gripped Fletcher's hand. "When do we start?" "Now." Fletcher stood before 190 soldiers in the main briefing room. They ranged in age from 25 to 50, every branch of service, every specialty, all of them recruited carefully over 20 years, all of them knowing only that they were training for a classified defensive operation. Now they would learn the truth. "At ease." Fletcher's voice carried authority that came from years of command. "What I'm about to tell you will sound like science fiction. Some of you will think I've lost my mind. That's fine. There's the door. No one will stop you. No one will judge you." He paused. No one moved. "Good. Dr. Hawthorne, if you would." Iris stepped forward, tablet in hand. The holographic display behind them came to life. A galaxy rotating slowly. Tiny markers indicating ship positions. 30 years ago, she began, voice steady despite her nerves, "my father detected extraterrestrial communications. Since then, we've been monitoring 12 distinct alien species, tracking their movements, learning their languages, analyzing their military capabilities." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Fletcher raised a hand. Silence returned. "We're not alone," he said quietly, "and the neighbors aren't friendly. The Galactic Dominion controls most of this galaxy. They expand through what they call integration. Primitive species are absorbed. Advanced species are annexed. No one gets a choice. Why haven't they contacted Earth officially? Someone called out. Because we're not worth their time yet. We're listed as pre-spaceflight primitives, low priority for contact. Fletcher's jaw tightened. But that's changing. In the next 6 months, they'll arrive. Diplomatic mission. Investigation into why their reconnaissance probes keep disappearing near our solar system. We've been destroying their probes. For 15 years. Fletcher gestured at the holographic display. 8 different encounters. 0 casualties on our side. They think we're primitives. We've let them think that while we prepared. Iris advanced the display. Ship schematics appeared, weapons specifications, tactical assessments. This is everything we know about Dominion military doctrine, she explained. Their shield frequencies, weapon ranges, command structures. We've spent 3 decades building the most comprehensive intelligence database on an alien civilization that Earth has ever seen. And now we use it, Fletcher said. When they arrive, we'll know exactly what they're capable of. We'll know their tactics before they deploy them. We'll know their weaknesses before they know we're a threat. He let that sink in. Some of you are thinking this sounds easy. It's not. They have technology centuries ahead of ours. Ships that could level continents. Weapons we can barely understand. His voice hardened. But they've never fought an enemy that knew them this well. They've never faced humans defending their home. A young lieutenant raised his hand. Fletcher nodded. Sir, what's our objective? If they're that powerful, how do we win? We don't win, Lieutenant. We survive. We make them understand that conquering Earth will cost more than it's worth. We prove that we deserve a choice. Fletcher's eyes swept the room. And if that means fighting, we fight smart. Asymmetric warfare. Hit and fade, turn their strengths into vulnerabilities. What about casualties? Someone asked quietly. The room went silent. Fletcher didn't flinch from the question. There will be casualties. This isn't a training exercise. This is war, even if the world doesn't know it yet. Some of you will die. Some of you will watch friends die. That's the price of defending a planet that doesn't know it needs defending. He paused, letting the weight settle. But hear this. Every one of you volunteered for this duty. Every one of you understood the risks. And when historians finally write about what's coming, they'll write about the men and women who stood in the gap, who saw the darkness and didn't blink, who chose to protect billions who'll never know their names. Iris watched Fletcher command the room, saw the doubt in some faces, the determination in others, the fear in all of them. You have 24 hours to decide, Fletcher continued. Stay and fight or walk away, no judgment either way. But if you stay all in. Because in 6 months, maybe sooner, a fleet of alien warships will enter our solar system, and will be all that stands between them and 7 billion people who think we're alone in the universe. He stepped back, gestured to Iris. Dr. Hawthorne will be running intelligence operations from here forward. Her father built this facility, this database, this chance. She's inherited that mission. You'll report to her for threat analysis and tactical planning. Iris felt every eye turn to her, swallowed hard. My father spent 30 years preparing for what's coming. He died knowing he'd done everything he could. Now it's our turn, all of us, to finish what he started. The briefing ended in silence. Fletcher watched the soldiers file out, reading their body language. Most were processing. A few looked skeptical, but none looked like they were running. Good. Iris approached him. You think they'll stay? Most of them. The ones who don't weren't ready anyway. He pulled up a tactical display on his tablet. We need to accelerate training. If your projections are right, they are. Then we have less time than we thought. I need you to compile a complete threat assessment. Every ship class they might send, every tactic they might employ. Everything. That's thousands of hours of analysis. Then you better start now. Iris looked at the display, at ship icons representing vessels that could destroy Earth without breaking stride, at tactical data her father had died compiling. He really believed we could do this, didn't he? Fight them and win. Fletcher was quiet for a moment. He believed we deserved the chance to try. That's all any of us can ask for. Outside the facility, the desert stretched empty under infinite stars. Somewhere up there, ships were moving, plotting courses, following procedures 3,000 years old, coming to a primitive world that had heard them coming and prepared. Colonel James Thaddeus Fletcher stood at the holographic display watching alien ship positions update in real time. Iris Hawthorne worked beside him, her father's database, open fingers flying across keyboards. Around them, 190 soldiers trained, prepared, waited. The galaxy was coming, And for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy had no idea what it was walking into. Fletcher allowed himself the ghost of a smile. "Malcolm," he said quietly to the empty air, "we'll finish what you started, I promise." The stars didn't answer. They didn't need to. The Watchers were awake, and they would not yield. The Dominion investigation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 12 ships, sleek and enormous, each one dwarfing the International Space Station like a cathedral beside a tool shed. Admiral Valera Kesh stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Judgment, 4 arms crossed behind her back, purple skin gleaming under the soft bioluminescent lighting. 300 years old, head of Dominion intelligence. She'd cataloged 47 species in her career. This would be 48. "Scan the system," she ordered. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Locate the primitive homeworld." "Aye, Admiral." Her tactical officer, Subcommander Raxus, manipulated holographic controls. His scales shifted from green to curious blue. "Third planet from the star. Nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. Electromagnetic signatures consistent with early industrial development." Valera studied the readouts. Radio transmissions. Satellite networks. Nuclear power signatures. Primitive but advancing. In another 1,000 years, they might achieve basic spaceflight, if the Dominion allowed them that long. "Any sign of the missing reconnaissance probes?" "Negative, Admiral, but we're detecting unusual debris fields in the outer system." Raxus magnified the display. "Admiral, some of this wreckage matches our probe signatures." "Show me." The hologram updated. Scattered across millions of kilometers, fragments of Dominion technology drifted in cold vacuum. Not just probes, larger vessels, military craft. Some pieces looked recent. Others had been floating for years. Valera's primary eyes narrowed. Analysis, weapon impacts, kinetic strikes, extremely precise targeting. Raxus's scales flickered orange, indicating confusion. "Admiral, the precision required to destroy these vessels suggests advanced tactical capability. But the primitive world shows no signs of possessing such technology. Then someone else is operating in this system." Valera moved closer to the display, studying impact patterns. "Scan for other vessels, military installations, anything that might explain this." The bridge crew worked in tense silence. Minutes passed. Admiral Communications Officer Talana reported, "We're being scanned." Source: the third planet, multiple locations, coordinated sensor sweeps. Talana's bioluminescent patterns showed surprise. "Admiral, their sensor resolution is sophisticated, far beyond what primitives should possess." Valera felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Uncertainty. "Hail the planet, standard first contact protocols. Inform them we come in peace on behalf of the Galactic Dominion." Talana worked her console, transmitting on all known primitive communication bands, waiting for response. The response came in 17 seconds. Not in broken translations or confused mathematical sequences, in perfect Dominion standard. The voice was male, calm, professional, speaking their language like he'd been born to it. "Dominion vessel Eternal Judgment. This is Colonel James Fletcher, Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization. State your business or withdraw immediately." The bridge went silent. Valera stared at the communications console. "They speak our language perfectly, Admiral," Talana whispered. "No translation matrix required. They know our tongue." "How?" No one had an answer. Valera straightened. 300 years of diplomatic experience taking over. "Open a channel." "Channel open, Admiral." "Colonel Fletcher," she said, letting her voice carry the full authority of the Dominion. "I am Admiral Valera Kesh, commander of this investigation fleet. We detected anomalous activity in your system. Multiple vessels destroyed. We're here to determine what threat exists and ensure galactic security." Silence for a moment. Then, "Admiral, the only threat in this system is uninvited military vessels. We've detected your ships. We know your capabilities. We request you withdraw to avoid misunderstandings." Raxus's scales went pure white. Shock. "Admiral, they're threatening us." Valera raised a hand, kept her voice level. "Colonel Fletcher, I don't believe you understand the situation. The Galactic Dominion has maintained order in this galaxy for 3,000 years. We catalog all species, ensure compliance with galactic law. Your world is listed as primitive pre-contact. You cannot possibly threaten a Dominion fleet." "Admiral," Fletcher's voice remained maddeningly calm, "we've been monitoring Dominion communications for 30 years. We know your expansion protocols. We know your integration policies. We know what happened to the Pelthara, the Corvax, the Tremory. 47 species absorbed. We will not be 48. Valara felt her blood temperature drop. 30 years. Impossible, she said. Primitive species, EICDs, don't have the technology to intercept our transmissions. And yet here we are speaking your language, knowing your history, asking you politely to leave. A pause. Admiral, we don't want conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Please, withdraw while this can still end peacefully. Raxus leaned close to Valara. Admiral, this is unprecedented. They shouldn't know about integration protocols. That information is classified above even most Dominion citizens. I'm aware. Valara studied the planet rotating peacefully below, clouds swirling, oceans gleaming. Launch reconnaissance drones. I want close-range scans of their defensive capabilities. Admiral, they requested we not... I heard what they requested, Subcommander. Launch the drones, Cetuvus. Fletcher watched the holographic display as 3 Dominion drones detached from the flagship. Small craft, heavily shielded, designed to penetrate atmosphere and conduct detailed planetary scans. Iris stood beside him, fingers flying across her console. They're not listening. They never do the first time. Fletcher's voice was steady. He'd run this scenario 100 times in training. Tactical status. Lieutenant David Reeves, their youngest officer at 29, called out readings. All EDF platforms online. Kinetic weapons charged. Defense grid active. We have firing solutions on all 3 drones. Captain Morrison. Captain Jessica Morrison's face appeared on a secondary screen. 34 years old. Commander of Orbital Defense Platform Zulu 7. She'd been with Project Sentinel for 8 years, rising through the ranks with tactical brilliance that impressed even Fletcher. Ready on your order, sir. Fletcher watched the drones accelerating toward Earth. Mathematical calculations running through his mind. Trajectories, impact windows, collateral damage assessment. Iris, what's their sensor capability? Each drone can map the entire planet to 1-meter resolution in 40 minutes. They'll detect every military installation, every weapon system, every defensive position we have. She looked at him. If we let them complete their scan, we lose our advantage. Fletcher nodded slowly, looked at the faces around him. Soldiers who'd trained for this moment, who trusted his judgment. He thought about his grandfather, World War II veteran who'd taught him chess as a boy. Underestimating your enemy is fatal, James. Always assume they're smarter than they look. Disable them, he ordered. Non-lethal if possible. I want the Dominion to know we're capable, but I don't want them thinking we're aggressive. Yes, sir. Morrison's platform adjusted position. Firing solution locked. Engaging. On the holographic display, 3 kinetic projectiles launched from hidden platforms disguised as orbital debris. Not the relativistic speed they'd use in real combat, just fast enough to intercept. The tungsten rods struck the Dominion drones with surgical precision. Shield generators overloaded. Propulsion systems failed. All 3 drones went dark, tumbling through space in uncontrolled spins. Disabled, not destroyed. Fletcher opened the channel again. Admiral Kesh, we've disabled your reconnaissance drones. They're intact. You can retrieve them once you've withdrawn from our system. We don't want to escalate this situation, but we will protect our sovereignty. Valara stared at the tactical display. All 3 drones offline in less than 12 seconds. Precision strikes that required perfect sensor data and flawless targeting. Primitives didn't do that. How? Raxus demanded. They don't have the technology. Our intelligence reports show basic satellites, chemical rockets. They're centuries from developing weapons capable of... Our intelligence, Valara interrupted quietly, is wrong. She thought through 30 years of assumptions. Catalog data showing primitive electromagnetic emissions. Assessment reports marking Earth as low-priority contact. Standard Dominion doctrine that had worked for 3,000 years. All of it based on one critical assumption that primitives couldn't hide their true capabilities. What if this one could? Admiral, Talana said nervously. The human is hailing us again. Put him through. Fletcher's voice filled the bridge. Still calm, still professional. Admiral, I'm uploading coordinates for a neutral meeting location. Our orbital station Zulu 7, unarmed diplomatic shuttle. Just you and me, face to face. Maybe we can resolve this without anyone getting hurt. Valara considered. Every protocol said refuse, maintain distance, overwhelm with superior force, never negotiate with primitives as equals. But these weren't standard primitives. I'll meet with you, Colonel, 2 hours. But know this, if I detect any deception, my fleet will respond with overwhelming force. Understood, Admiral. I'm transmitting docking procedures now. Zulu 7 awaits. The channel closed. Raxus moved closer. Admiral, this could be a trap. Everything about this situation is a trap, Subcommander. The question is whether the humans set it or we walked into it ourselves by assuming they were ignorant. She turned to her command chair. Prepare my shuttle. I'm going to meet the primitive who speaks perfect Dominion standard and disables our drones like they're children's toys. And if it is a trap, Valera's forearms gestured at the fleet around them, then 12 Dominion warships will teach these humans why 3,000 years of species learned to respect the Dominion. But even as she said it, she remembered the debris fields, the destroyed probes, the missing reconnaissance vessels. Something whispered that the humans had already learned plenty about the Dominion, and that terrified her. Fletcher waited in the small conference room. No weapons, no armor, just his dress uniform and 30 years of preparation. Iris spoke through his earpiece. She's docking now, alone as promised. Biorhythm scans show elevated stress, but no deception markers. Good. Keep monitoring. If anything goes wrong, we'll extract you, I know. A pause. Colonel, be careful. She's 300 years old. More diplomatic experience than everyone on Earth combined. Then it's good I'm not here to out-diplomat her. Fletcher checked his reflection in the polished wall. I'm here to make her understand we're not primitives waiting to be cataloged. The airlock hissed. The door slid open. Admiral Valera Kesh entered the room. Fletcher had seen images, studied her file, but seeing her in person was different. She moved with the grace of someone who'd commanded fleets for longer than his entire civilization had used written language. Forearms held in a posture that suggested both authority and caution. Purple skin marked with patterns he recognized from Dominion military decorations. Eyes primary and secondary that missed nothing. She studied him with equal intensity. Colonel Fletcher. Her voice was rich, musical, the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Admiral Kesh. He gestured to a chair designed for her physiology. Thank you for meeting with me. She sat, graceful despite her size. I confess, Colonel, you've created quite the puzzle. 30 years of monitoring our communications. Perfect mastery of our language. Weapons that suggest far more advanced capability than our assessments indicated. I'm curious how a primitive species accomplished this. By not being primitive, Admiral. Just cautious. Cautious. She leaned back. An interesting choice of words. Most species we encounter are either terrified or hostile when we make first contact. You seem neither. We're prepared, Admiral. There's a difference. Fletcher activated a holographic display between them. 30 years ago, one of our scientists detected your communications. He could have reported it, caused global panic, demanded immediate militarization. Instead, he did something smarter. He listened. For 30 years, he listened. Learned your language, studied your tactics, analyzed your technology, built a database on Dominion operations that probably rivals your own intelligence archives. Fletcher advanced the display. We know about the Pelthara integration, the Corvax mining operations, the Tremari force technology sharing. We know how the Dominion expands. Valera's expression didn't change, but her secondary eyes flickered, surprise she couldn't quite hide. Those operations are classified. Oh, not if you've been intercepting your military communications for 3 decades. Fletcher met her gaze steadily. Admiral, we're not ignorant primitives stumbling into galactic civilization. We're a species that heard you coming and prepared. Carefully, quietly, completely. To what end? To have this conversation as equals, not as conqueror and conquered. Silence stretched between them. Outside the viewport, Earth rotated peacefully, blue and white and beautiful. You can't win a war against the Dominion, Valera said finally. 12 ships in this fleet, thousands more across the galaxy, technology centuries beyond yours. You disabled 3 drones, impressive, but meaningless against real military force. You're right, Fletcher said. We can't win a conventional war, but we don't need to. We just need to make victory cost more than you're willing to pay. Elaborate. Fletcher advanced the holographic display again. 8 engagements over 15 years. Destroyed or disabled vessels from 6 different species. 0 human casualties. Every battle fought with perfect intelligence on our enemy's capabilities. Every tactic designed specifically to exploit their weaknesses. He showed her footage. Vorak raiders crippled by precision kinetic strikes. Kronar scouts disabled by electromagnetic pulses timed to their shield rotation frequencies. Zephyrian explorers trapped by gravity well manipulation. Valera watched in silence. We don't fight fair, Admiral. We fight prepared. And right now, we know more about your fleet than you know about our capabilities. Your shield frequencies, your weapon ranges, your standard tactical formations, your officers' psychological profiles. Fletcher paused. If you force us to fight, we will. And it will cost you ships you can't afford to lose investigating a primitive world. You're bluffing. Am I? He pulled up technical specifications. Dominion ship schematics accurate to the centimeter. Tactical doctrine, documents that match classified Dominion training manuals, word for word. We've been listening for 30 years, Admiral. We know you. Valara stared at the documents, at intelligence that should have been impossible for primitives to possess, her centuries of certainty cracking. What do you want, Colonel? Recognition. Not as primitives, not as future integration targets, as a sovereign species capable of defending itself. We don't want war, but we won't accept vassalage. The Dominion doesn't negotiate with species you can defeat easily, I know. Fletcher's voice hardened slightly. But we're not easy, Admiral, and deep down you already know that. That's why you came here instead of just attacking. You're uncertain, and the Dominion doesn't like uncertainty. Valara stood, paced to the viewport, looked down at Earth. Do you know why the Dominion has maintained order for 3,000 years, Colonel? Perfect intelligence and overwhelming force. Close. Perfect intelligence and the certainty that comes from never encountering the unknown. She turned to face him. You've introduced uncertainty. That alone makes you dangerous. Or it makes us worth talking to. Before Valera could respond, alarms shrieked throughout the station. Fletcher's earpiece erupted with Iris's voice. Colonel, we have a situation. Kronar Dreadnought just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. War Captain Kroll. He's demanding vengeance for his destroyed hunting pack. Fletcher's blood went cold. Iris, tell Morrison to raise all platforms to alert status. Do not engage unless fired upon. Colonel, he's not responding to hails. He's accelerating toward Earth. Weapons hot. Valera grabbed her own communicator. Subcommander Raxus, what is a Kronar Dreadnought doing in this system? Raxus's voice came back tense. Admiral, we received a distress call 3 weeks ago. Kronar hunting pack destroyed near this world. War Captain Kroll requested permission to investigate. We denied it. He must have come anyway. Stop him. Admiral, the Kronar don't take orders from us. He's outside Dominion jurisdiction. We can't. The channel dissolved into static. Fletcher and Valera looked at each other. 30 seconds ago, they'd been adversaries. Now circumstances had shifted. How heavily armed is a Kronar Dreadnought? Fletcher asked. Enough to sterilize a continent. Valera's forearms moved rapidly across her communicator. Kroll is a zealot. If he thinks humans killed his hunting pack, he won't stop until he has vengeance. Then we need to stop him. Fletcher ran for the command center. Valera followed. The main display showed the Kronar Dreadnought Bone Crusher. 3 kilometers of bioorganic armor. Weapons bristling from every surface. Moving toward Earth at acceleration that defied physics. Fletcher took command position. All platforms battle stations. I want firing solutions on that Dreadnought. Iris, what do we know about Kronar tactics? Iris's fingers flew across her console. Aggressive direct assault. They value honor over strategy. Prefer close-range combat. Weakness is their predictability. They follow doctrine rigidly. She pulled up schematics. But Colonel, their bio-armor regenerates. Conventional weapons won't stop them for long. We don't need long. We need to disable them without destroying the ship. Why not destroy it? Fletcher glanced at where Valera stood listening. Because the Dominion is watching. And I want them to see we fight smart, not savage. The communication channel crackled. War Captain Kroll's voice thick with rage and translated by automatic systems. Primitive humans. You destroyed my hunting pack. Killed Kronar warriors. This is unforgivable. I am War Captain Kroll of the Bone Crusher. Surrender now and your deaths will be honorable. Resist and I will burn your world to ash. Fletcher opened a channel. War Captain, we offered your hunting pack the chance to withdraw. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. Leave now and this doesn't have to escalate. You dare speak to me of escalation. You who killed warriors with primitive weapons. Kroll's laugh was ugly. I will teach you respect for Kronar might. Your world will learn what happens to those who challenge us. The channel cut. On the display, the Bone Crusher activated weapons. Bioplasma cannons charging with sickly green light. Sir Morrison reported from her platform. He's targeting population centers. New York, Beijing, Tokyo. He's going to fire on civilian targets. Fletcher's jaw clenched. All platforms intercept formation. Shield the major cities. Captain Morrison, you have operational command of orbital assets. Yes, sir. 60 defense platforms shifted position. Hidden weapons that had waited 15 years for this moment. Kinetic accelerators disguised as communication satellites. Electromagnetic pulse generators camouflaged as weather stations. Gravity well projectors that looked like scientific experiments. The Bone Crusher fired. 6 streams of bioplasma each, capable of vaporizing a city, lanced toward Earth. Morrison's voice was ice calm. Intercepting. Firing solution Delta 7. Kinetic projectiles launched from 12 platforms. Not aimed at the plasma streams, those couldn't be stopped. Aimed at the space between Earth and the incoming fire. The projectiles detonated, not explosive warheads. Electromagnetic pulse charges that created a barrier of ionized particles. The plasma streams hit the barrier and dispersed. Harmless light show across the upper atmosphere. Kroll's roar of fury echoed across all frequencies. Impossible primitives don't have shield technology. We don't, Fletcher muttered. We have physics and 30 years to figure out how to make it work. The Bone Crusher adjusted course, coming directly at the defensive grid. Kroll wasn't going to bombard from distance. He was going to ram through and destroy everything personally. Sir, Reeves called out. He's accelerating. Impact with platform Zulu 7 in 90 seconds. Fletcher looked at Iris. She nodded. They'd planned for this. Morrison, execute Pattern Serpent. Pattern Serpent, aye. The 60 platforms scattered. Not randomly, in a carefully calculated formation that looked chaotic but created a 3-dimensional cage around the dreadnought's projected path. Kroll charged through the opening they'd left, exactly as planned. Now, Fletcher ordered. 20 platforms fired simultaneously. Not at the Bone Crusher, at the space around it. Gravity well projectors creating localized distortions that pulled the massive ship off course. The dreadnought's bio-armor began regenerating damage from the gravitational stress, but the projectors kept firing, kept pulling. The ship slowed, struggled. He's caught, Morrison reported. But sir, the bio-armor is adapting. We've got maybe 2 minutes before he breaks free. Then we end this in 2 minutes. All platforms target his shield generators. Iris, what are the frequencies? Transmitting now. Fletcher watched as tactical data flowed to every platform. 30 years of intelligence. 30 years of knowing Kronar technology better than the Kronar knew themselves. Fire. 60 kinetic projectiles, each one tuned to a specific resonance frequency, struck the Bone Crusher simultaneously. The shields designed to deflect energy weapons and explosive missiles couldn't handle the precision kinetic strikes at frequencies that matched their own harmonic weakness. The shields collapsed. Target his weapons, Fletcher ordered. More projectiles, these ones aimed at the bioplasma cannons, at the power conduits feeding them, at the neural interfaces controlling them. The Bone Crusher shuddered. Weapon systems going dark one by one. And then the unthinkable happened. Platform Zulu 7 Morrison's IEH station took a direct hit from one of the dreadnought's last functional cannons. The platform shields overloaded. Hull breach on multiple decks. Morrison, report. Static. Morrison. The captain's voice came back strained. We're venting atmosphere. Deck 3 completely casualties. Her voice broke. Captain Ashford is dead, sir. Shield generator failure. She was trying to reroute power when we were hit. 12 others injured. Fletcher felt something inside him crack. Captain Nora Ashford, 36 years old. Mother of twin boys, 6 years old. She'd shown him pictures yesterday, smiling kids who didn't know their mother was fighting a secret war in orbit. Evacuate Zulu 7, he ordered, his voice mechanical. Professional, the only way to keep functioning. All personnel to escape pods. Morrison, get your people out. Sir, we can still. That's an order, Captain. On the display, the Bone Crusher finally broke free of the gravity wells, but it was crippled. Weapons offline, shields down, propulsion damaged. Kroll's voice filled with disbelief. How did primitives? Fletcher opened the channel, his voice flat, empty. War Captain Kroll, your ship is disabled. Surrender now or we will destroy you. You wouldn't dare. I am War Captain of the Kronar Imperium. You cannot. We've been listening to your communications for 30 years, Captain. We know about Kronar honor. We know about your regenerative armor. We know about your tactical doctrine. Fletcher's hands gripped the console. And we know exactly how to kill you. All of you. Right now. Silence. But we won't, Fletcher continued, because that's not who we are. Evacuate to your escape pods. We'll allow you to leave this system. Take your crew. Tell the Kronar Imperium that Earth is defended. Tell them we fight only when attacked. Tell them we don't want war." He paused. "But tell them we're ready for it." Long seconds passed. Then, "You have made an enemy this day human." "No, Captain. You made an enemy when you fired on civilians. We're just the ones who stopped you." Escape pods began launching from the Bone Crusher, dozens of them, the crew abandoning their ship to primitives. Fletcher watched them go, felt nothing. Nora Ashford's face kept appearing in his mind. Her twins. Who was going to tell them? "Colonel," Iris said quietly, "we have casualties coming in. Final count, 23 dead, 41 wounded. 23 names for the wall. 23 families who'd get visits from officers telling them their loved ones died in a classified operation defending a planet that didn't know it needed defending." Fletcher looked at Valera. The Dominion admiral had watched the entire battle in silence. Now she met his eyes. "You could have destroyed his ship," she said, "with his crew aboard. Would have been justified." Justified isn't the same as right. Most species don't see the difference. Then most species aren't human. Fletcher turned back to the display. "Admiral, you came here to investigate destroyed ships. You have your answer. We defend ourselves. We don't conquer. We don't integrate. We don't absorb. We exist. And we ask only to be left alone to do so." Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I need to report to the Dominion Council what I've witnessed here." But it changes calculations. "Will they accept our independence?" "I don't know, but I'll recommend it." She moved toward the exit, paused. "Colonel, in 300 years, I've cataloged 47 species. Most of them accepted integration eagerly. The few who resisted were destroyed. You're the first to defeat a superior force without becoming what you fought against." "We had a good teacher." Fletcher thought of Malcolm. "He taught us that silence was survival, and that the best weapon is one you never have to use." Valera departed. Fletcher stood alone in the command center. Around him, soldiers worked in quiet efficiency, professional, disciplined, grieving. "Sir," Iris approached. The families, Ashford's twins. Who's going to—" "I will." Fletcher's voice was hollow. "It's my responsibility." "Colonel, you can't carry this alone." "Then who?" He looked at her. "Who else knows what we're fighting for? Who else can tell those children their mother died? Protecting billions of people who'll never know her name?" Iris didn't have an answer. Fletcher walked to his office, sat at his desk, pulled up the casualty list. 23 names, 23 files, 23 people who'd volunteered for this. Captain Nora Ashford, age 36. Twin sons, Michael and James, age 6. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, age 28. Parents in Seattle. Sergeant Marcus Day, age 41. Wife and daughter, on and on. He'd memorized every file, every face, every family. Now he'd have to visit them, look them in the eyes, tell them the truth without telling them everything. Fletcher put his head in his hands. For 30 years, he prepared for war, studied tactics, trained soldiers, built weapons, but nothing prepared you for this. Nothing prepared you for being the one who sent people to die. A knock at his door. "Come." Morrison entered, bandaged, exhausted, but standing. "Sir, the twins, Ashford's boys, they're asking for you." "What?" "They were on the station, visiting for the week. Nora wanted them to see where she worked." Morrison's voice cracked. "They saw the battle. They know something happened. They're asking for the colonel." Fletcher stood, straightened his uniform, wiped his face. "Where are they?" "Medical bay." He walked through corridors lined with people who knew, who understood that today Earth had won a battle but lost heroes. Faces that turned away, not from disrespect, from shared grief. The medical bay was quiet. Emergency surgeries complete. Wounded stable. In a small room at the end, 2 6-year-old boys sat on a bench, identical twins, dark hair, their mother's eyes. They looked up when Fletcher entered. "Colonel Fletcher," the first one said. Michael, if he remembered correctly. "Yes." "Where's our mom?" Fletcher knelt, brought himself to their level, looked into those young faces that didn't yet understand the universe was cruel. "Your mother," he said slowly, "was the bravest person I ever knew." Was the word hung in the air. Fletcher didn't look away, didn't soften it. These boys deserve truth. "She saved 12 people today. The station was hit. The shields were failing. Everyone was going to But your mother, she stayed at her post, rerouted power, gave those 12 people time to evacuate. Is she dead, James, the other twin? Voice small. Yes. They didn't cry. Not yet. Shock, probably. It would hit later. Did she stop the bad guys, Michael asked. Fletcher thought about the bone crusher drifting dead in space, about Kroll's escape pods fleeing the system, about Valera watching humans choose restraint over revenge. Yes, he said, she did. And because of her, millions of people are safe. People who'll never know her name. But they're alive because of what she did. Will you tell them? James asked. Will you tell the people she saved them? Fletcher's throat tightened. Someday, when it's safe, I promise you someday the whole world will know what your mother did. The twins looked at each other, some silent communication only twins understood. Mom always said you were a good man, Michael said. She said you'd take care of us if something happened. I will, I promise. They hugged him then. Two small boys clinging to the only adult who could tell them the truth about how their mother died. Fletcher held them, let them cry against his uniform, and when they finally pulled back, he saw something in their eyes that would haunt him. Not just grief, understanding. These boys knew somehow that their mother had died for something bigger than they could comprehend, something that mattered. Can we see the stars? Michael asked. Mom liked the stars. Fletcher led them to an observation deck. Earth filled the view below, blue and peaceful and utterly unaware of the battle fought in its defense. There, he pointed at distant lights. That's where the bad ships were. And that, he indicated the defense platforms, is where your mother stood, between danger and home. Like a guardian, James said, exactly like a guardian. They stood together, three people bearing witness to sacrifice the world wouldn't know for years, maybe decades. Fletcher thought about Malcolm, about 30 years of preparation, about 23 names now added to the wall, about the price of freedom. Colonel, Michael's voice, will there be more bad guys? Probably. Will you stop them too? Fletcher looked down at these boys, orphaned by a war fought in silence, protected by secrets they couldn't understand. Yes, he said, we'll stop them. Your mother made sure of that. And as the twins watched the stars, Fletcher made a silent promise. To Nora, to Malcolm, to the 23 names he'd have to add to the memorial wall. This will matter. Your sacrifice will matter. The world will know. Someday. Admiral Valera Kesh stood before the assembled council. 47 representatives from species spanning the galaxy. High Chancellor Mordak, ancient and wise, presided from the central throne. The chamber buzzed with tension. Admiral Kesh, Councillor Vexoth's voice dripped with contempt. The Mondre merchant lord had built fortunes on primitive world exploitation. You allowed a dreadnought to be defeated by primitives. Then you met with their leader. Alone, as if they were equals. They are equals, Counselor. Valera's forearms remained steady. I witnessed combat effectiveness that rivals our own, intelligence gathering that penetrated our classified systems, and restraint that most civilized species lack. Restraint, Vexeth laughed. They destroyed Kronar vessels. After being attacked. Every engagement I reviewed showed humans offering peaceful withdrawal. When enemies refused, humans defended themselves with precision that minimized casualties. Valera advanced the holographic display. War Captain Kroll fired on civilian population centers. The humans stopped him. Then they allowed his crew to evacuate. They could have killed them all, justified under any military doctrine. They chose mercy. Councillor Yelena of the Pacifist Union leaned forward. Admiral, you're recommending we recognize Earth's independence. I am. The chamber erupted. Vexoth's voice cut through the chaos. Unprecedented. For 3,000 years, we have maintained order through integration. Every primitive species benefits from dominion guidance. To allow one to refuse sets a dangerous precedent. With respect, Counselor, I believe we're the ones who set the precedent. Valera met his gaze. 47 species integrated. How many were given a genuine choice? Silence fell. High Chancellor Mordak raised his hand. The ancient Zelani's voice carried the weight of 5 centuries. Admiral Kesh, explain. The humans have been monitoring our communications for 30 years. They know our integration protocols. They know what happened to the Pelthera, the Korvax, the Tremari. Valera pulled up classified documents. They know we offer a false choice. Submit or be destroyed. They prepared a third option. There is no third option, Vexoth snarled. There is now. They proved it by defeating superior forces while maintaining moral high ground. They chose defense over conquest, mercy over vengeance. Valera's voice strengthened. Counselors, these humans introduced something we haven't seen in 3 millennia. Uncertainty. And they did it by being better than we expected primitives to be. Mordak studied the battle footage. The Bone Crusher disabled. Kroll's crew evacuated safely. Human casualties mourned but not avenged with excessive force. What do the humans want? To be left alone. To develop on their own terms. To exist. Valara paused. Nothing more. And if we refuse, then we fight a species that knows us better than we know ourselves. That will cost us ships' resources and the certainty that has maintained Dominion power for 3,000 years. She gestured at the star charts. Or we recognize their capability. Grant independence. Set a new precedent that strength earns respect, not subjugation. Vexoth stood. This is cowardice dressed as wisdom. We should send 50 dreadnoughts. Reduce Earth to ash. Make an example that prevents other primitives from harboring similar delusions. Orbital bombardment of a civilian world, Yelena's voice was sharp. That's genocide, counselor. That's necessity. Valera's blood ran cold. She thought about Fletcher. About his restraint when he could have destroyed Kroll. About the memorial wall he'd shown her via holocam. 23 names, 23 families, each one mourned. These weren't primitives. They were people. High Chancellor, she said quietly, I request permission to address one final point. Mordak nodded. Valera pulled up her personal files. In 300 years, I've cataloged 47 species. Most accepted integration eagerly. Better technology. Galactic trade. Protection. Reasonable benefits. She paused. But 6 species resisted. We crushed them. Wiped their military forces from existence. Forced integration at gunpoint. They exist today as client states. Resentful. Barely compliant. Costly to maintain. Your point, Admiral. My point is that forced integration creates enemies we must constantly suppress. The humans prove they can defend themselves. But they don't want empire. They don't want conquest. They want the choice we deny everyone else. She met each counselor's eyes. What if we granted that choice not just to Earth, to every species capable of defending their sovereignty? Make the Dominion a voluntary alliance instead of an enforced empire. Chaos, Vexeth spat. Within a generation, the entire Dominion would fracture. Or it would strengthen, Yelena countered. Species choosing cooperation instead of being forced into it. True allies instead of resentful subjects. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Mordak called for order. We will vote. Counselors attend carefully to what we decide today. This vote determines whether the Dominion evolves or stagnates. He paused. All in favor of recognizing Earth's independence and offering diplomatic relations on equal terms. The vote was close. 25 for recognition, 22 against. Mordak's ancient eyes swept the chamber. I vote for recognition. The humans have earned what we should have been offering all along, the right to choose. Valara felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Hope. Fletcher stood at the memorial wall, fresh names carved into black stone, 23 additions in perfect lettering. Captain Nora Ashford, age 36, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, age 28, Sergeant Marcus Day, age 41, on and on. Behind him, 167 soldiers stood at attention, the survivors, bearing witness. Iris spoke, her voice steady despite the grief. We gather to honor those who gave everything defending a world that doesn't know it needed defending. They died in secret. They'll be buried with lies. But we know the truth. Fletcher stepped forward. Captain Ashford stayed at her post when she could have evacuated. She rerouted power that saved 12 lives. She chose duty over survival. He moved to the next name. Lieutenant Kim piloted the intercept that stopped plasma fire from hitting Beijing. 4 million people alive because she put herself between danger and innocence. Another name. Sergeant Day coordinated defensive grid timing that disabled the Bone Crusher's weapons. His calculations were perfect. His sacrifice mattered. He continued down the wall. 23 names, 23 stories, 23 families who'd been told their loved ones died in classified military accidents. When he finished, silence held the room. Then Morrison stepped forward, bandaged but standing. Sir, permission to speak. Granted. These 23 died so 7 billion could live. That's the equation. That's what we signed up for. Her voice cracked. But sir, someday the world needs to know. These names deserve to be remembered by everyone they saved. Fletcher thought about Malcolm. About 30 years of lies to protect a truth too dangerous to share. When it's safe, he said quietly, when Earth knows about the galaxy, when people can understand what these soldiers did. then yes, the world will know. He turned to face the assembled soldiers. But until that day, we carry this burden. We remember them. We honor them by continuing their work. By defending Earth against threats it doesn't know exist. He paused. And by being better than our enemies. By choosing restraint when we have the power to destroy. By proving that humanity's strength isn't our weapons. It's our choice to use them only when we must. Iris activated a holographic display. Messages from the families. Michael and James Ashford had drawn pictures, crude crayon drawings of their mother as a guardian angel watching over Earth. Fletcher's throat tightened. They asked when they could visit, Iris whispered. The twins, they want to see where their mother worked. Bring them, Fletcher said. They deserve to know she mattered. The memorial service ended in silence. Soldiers filed past the wall touching names, leaving tokens, photographs, letters. Fletcher stood alone after they'd gone, staring at 23 names that represented thousands more. Every family member, every friend, every person whose life had been touched by this secret war. His communicator buzzed. Valara's encrypted frequency. Colonel Fletcher, this is Admiral Kesh. The Dominion Council has voted. 26 to 22 in favor of recognizing Earth's independence. Fletcher closed his eyes, felt weight lift from shoulders that had carried it for 30 years. Thank you, Admiral. Thank me by accepting diplomatic relations, by helping us build a better model than forced integration. A pause. And Colonel, I'm sorry for your losses. The memorial you showed me, those names, they deserve to be remembered. They will be. I know. Something in Valara's voice. Respect. Because you're not primitives. You're something we forgot how to be. People who remember that power without mercy is tyranny. The channel closed. Fletcher stood at the memorial wall for another hour. Then he walked to his office and began the hardest task, writing letters to 23 families, explaining that their loved ones had died heroes, even if the world would never know. The room was designed for both species, human height chairs beside ones for four-armed dignitaries. Temperature controlled to comfort both physiologies. Counselor Vexoth sat across from Fletcher. The Mandre's face showed barely concealed rage. You've made a mockery of 3,000 years of order, Vexoth hissed. We've introduced accountability, Fletcher replied calmly. There's a difference, Aaron. Valara intervened. Counselor Vexoth, you are here to negotiate trade agreements, not relitigate the Council's decision. The Council made a mistake, one I intend to correct. Vexoth leaned forward. You may have fooled them, Colonel, but I know what you are, primitives who got lucky. When the Dominion tires of this experiment, we'll return, and you won't be ready a second time. Fletcher met his gaze without flinching. Counselor, we've been ready for 30 years. We'll be ready for 30 more. And every day you delay, we learn more. Prepare better. Become harder to conquer. Is that a threat? It's a promise. We don't want war, but we're not afraid of it either. Vexoth stood abruptly. This is pointless. I'm returning to my ship. He stormed out. Valara sighed. My apologies, Colonel. The counselor is resistant to change. He's planning something, Fletcher said quietly. I know the type. Men who'd rather burn the world than admit they were wrong. The council is watching him. He won't act without approval. Maybe not officially. Fletcher pulled up a data slate. But my intelligence suggests he's been meeting with military contractors, species who lost profitable integration contracts when Earth was granted independence. They're angry. Valara's secondary eyes widened. You have evidence. 30 years of listing, Admiral. We hear a lot. He slid the data slate across. Encrypted communications, financial transfers, meeting records. Vexoth is planning to hire mercenaries, attack Earth in a way that can't be traced back to the Dominion. Provoke us into overreacting. Give the Council reason to revoke our independence. Valara studied the evidence. Her face cycled through shock, anger, and finally grim determination. This is treason. This is a man who'd rather destroy peace than admit he was wrong about primitives. Fletcher leaned back. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Arrest him, present evidence to the Council. He'll be tried under Dominion law. Not revenge, justice, Colonel. Valara met his eyes. You taught me the difference. The chamber was packed, every counselor present. Galactic media transmitting live across 100 worlds. This was unprecedented, a sitting counselor accused of treason. Vexoth stood in shackles, his merchant's robes stripped away. The evidence displayed on massive holographic screens for all to see. Encrypted messages to mercenary fleets. Payment authorizations traced through dozens of shell companies. Attack plans targeting Earth's orbital platforms complete with detailed schematics stolen from classified Dominion files. High Chancellor Mordok's voice was cold as the void. Counselor Vexoth, you have violated every principle the Dominion stands for. You attempted to start an unauthorized war, to murder civilians, to undermine council authority for personal profit. They're primitives. Vexoth's composure cracked completely. Spittle flew from his mouth. They don't deserve independence. They humiliated us, made us look weak. Someone had to act. You acted out of greed and wounded pride, Mordok said, his ancient voice cutting through Vexoth's hysteria like a blade. The evidence shows you stood to lose billions from dissolved integration contracts. You cared nothing for Dominion security, only your profit margins. Valera stepped forward, addressing the council. High Chancellor, if I may elaborate on the evidence. Mordok nodded. Valera advanced the holographic display. Vexoth's conspiracy extended beyond simple mercenary hiring. He was coordinating with 6 other merchant lords, all of whom profited from forced integration. Together, they planned a 3-phase operation. She pulled up tactical maps. Phase 1, mercenary attacks on Earth's orbital platforms disguised to look like independent pirate raids. Phase 2, when Earth defended itself, they would provide falsified intelligence to the Council, suggesting humans were preparing offensive operations against Dominion space. Phase 3 used this manufactured threat to justify full military intervention and forced integration. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The mercenary fleet, Valera continued, consisted of 47 ships, combined firepower equivalent to 3 Dominion battle groups. The casualties would have been catastrophic. Not just human, our own forces would have suffered losses in the thousands during the subsequent invasion. She turned to face Vexoth directly. You were willing to start a war that would kill millions, human and Dominion alike, all to protect your business interests. Vexoth's face twisted with rage and desperation. You're fools, all of you. The humans will destroy everything we've built. They're showing other primitives they can resist. 6 species have already petitioned for independence. In 10 years, the Dominion will fracture. Can't you see? We see quite clearly, Counselor. Mordok stood, his 5-century frame radiating authority. We see that forced integration breeds resentment. That empire built on conquest is fragile. That the humans offered us something we forgot existed a better way. He gestured to Valera. Admiral Kesh has proposed reforms to our integration protocols. Voluntary cooperation instead of forced submission. 6 species have petitioned for independence review. Their requests will be granted if they can demonstrate capability for self-governance. This is not fracture. This is evolution. Mordok's gaze swept the entire council. For 3,000 years, we've told ourselves that integration was for the good of primitive species, that we knew better, that might made right. He paused, letting silence emphasize his words. The humans proved we were wrong, not with weapons alone, but by being better than we expected, by choosing mercy when they had the power to destroy. He turned back to Vexoth. You are hereby stripped of your council seat. Your assets are frozen pending restitution to the 6 merchant lords you conspired with. They too will face charges. And you are sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. 1 year for each year the humans prepared for a threat you embody. You're making a mistake. Vexoth struggled against his restraints. Mark my words, the humans will do exactly what they've done for 30 years, Mordok interrupted. Defend themselves when threatened, extend mercy to defeated enemies, and show us what we forgot about true strength. He gestured to the guards. Take him. As Vexoth was dragged away, still shouting, Valera approached Fletcher in the observation gallery, where he'd watched the proceedings via holostream. Justice, she said quietly through the secure channel. Not revenge. Not easy, though, Fletcher responded. Nothing worthwhile is. She looked at the council chamber, still buzzing with debate over the reforms. Colonel, I've been appointed to head the new ethics commission, reviewing integration protocols, ensuring what happened with the Pelthara, the Korvax others, never happens again. Good. I want you to consult, provide human perspective, show us what we forgot. A pause. Will you, Fletcher thought about Malcolm, about the wall with 23 names, about Michael and James Ashford asking when the world would know their mother was a hero, and on one condition. Name it. When the reforms are complete, when the Dominion can prove it's changed. I want a formal apology to every species forced into integration, and I want Earth's story told. our preparation, our restraint, our 23 dead. I want the galaxy to know that humans chose mercy when we had the power to destroy. Valara extended her hand, the human gesture she'd learned. Deal. They shook, and across the galaxy word spread. The primitives from Earth had defeated superior forces, chosen mercy, exposed corruption at the highest levels, and forced the Dominion to confront its own failings. 6 species immediately petitioned for independence reviews. 12 more began preparing their own defense networks following the human model, 30 years of listening before revealing themselves. The galaxy was changing because one planet had listened to the stars and prepared, because one man had chosen his daughter's future over his own glory, because 23 soldiers had died protecting billions who would never know their names. Iris Hawthorne stood before a classroom of 40 students, half human, half from a dozen different species. The first generation learning defensive strategies in a galaxy that was slowly, painfully learning to respect sovereignty. She was 46 now, gray streaking her dark hair, lines around her eyes from years of staring at star charts and tactical displays. But her voice remained strong. Asymmetric warfare isn't about matching your enemy's strength. It's about understanding their weaknesses better than they do. She pulled up a holographic display. When my father discovered alien signals in 1998, he could have panicked, demanded immediate militarization. Instead, he listened for 30 years. A young Pelthara student raised a tentacle. Professor Hawthorne wasn't that risky, waiting that long. Extraordinarily, but necessary. We needed intelligence, not weapons. Understanding, not firepower. She advanced the display. By the time the Dominion arrived, we knew their ships better than their own engineers. We knew their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. But you still lost people, a human cadet said. Lieutenant Emma Reeves, daughter of David Reeves, who'd served on Fletcher's original team. 23 casualties. Yes, Iris's voice softened. Captain Nora Ashford, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, Sergeant Marcus Day, 20 others, each one mourned, each one honored, because casualties aren't statistics. They're people, families, futures lost. She walked to the window. Outside, the New Teisco Desert stretched empty under cloudless sky. Above, defense platforms orbited, peaceful now, but ready. My father gave 30 years to prepare for a war he hoped would never come. Colonel Fletcher gave another 30 fighting it. 23 soldiers gave everything. She turned back to the class. But they won something more valuable than a military victory. They won the right to choose. For Earth, for the 6 species who've gained independence since. For every primitive world that now knows they don't have to submit. The door opened. A young man entered. 18 years old, dark hair, familiar eyes. Iris smiled. Class, this is Michael Ashford. He's joining us today. Michael moved to the front, stood beside Iris. Professor Hawthorne asked me to share my mother's story. The students leaned forward. Captain Nora Ashford was my mom. She died when I was 6 years old. For years, I didn't understand why. They told me it was a classified military accident. He pulled up a holographic image, his mother in uniform, smiling. 10 years ago, Colonel Fletcher told me the truth. Mom died stopping a Kronar dreadnought from firing on civilian targets. She rerouted power that saved 12 people. She chose duty over survival. His voice steadied. I spent 10 years angry. Why didn't she evacuate? Why didn't she choose us, me and my brother, over strangers? He looked at Iris. Professor Hawthorne helped me understand. Mom didn't choose strangers over us. She chose everyone, including us. Because if she'd run, those 12 people would have died. And maybe the defense grid would have failed. And maybe Earth would have been conquered. He gestured at the window, at Earth spinning peacefully below. She died so 7 billion people could wake up the next morning free. So they could choose their own futures. So primitives across the galaxy would know they don't have to be victims. Michael's voice grew stronger. That's not a waste, that's a legacy. Silence held the classroom. Then a young Korvax student stood. Mr. Ashford, I'm Krelix from Mining Colony 7. 3 years ago, inspired by Earth's example, my people petitioned for independence. We won. My family owns our mine now. We choose our own future. He placed a fist over his heart. Korvax's gesture of respect. Your mother's sacrifice freed more than just Earth. Other students stood. Pelthara, Tremari, Bizarri, each one from species that had gained independence in Earth's wake. She freed us too. Michael's eyes glistened. He'd spent 10 years carrying grief and anger, now seeing what his mother's sacrifice had meant to billions. Thank you, he whispered. After class ended, Iris found him standing at the memorial wall, freshly carved, permanent. 23 names in letters tall enough to read from across the room. It had been moved here from the secret facility 3 years ago when Earth's government finally declassified Project Sentinel and the First Contact War. Your father said someday the world would know, Michael said quietly. He kept his promise. He keeps all his promises. Iris touched her father's name, added at the bottom. Dr. Malcolm Hawthorne, age 65, founder. They both did. Michael traced his mother's name. My brother joined the Space Force. Did you know they created it 2 years ago once the secret was out? I heard. Captain James Ashford, following in his mother's footsteps. He wants to be like her, like Fletcher. Defenders. A pause. I'm going to be a teacher. Like you. Pass on what they learned, what they died for. They'd be proud. I hope so. He looked at her. Professor, do you think it was worth it? 30 years of lying, 23 dead. All the families broken by secrets. Iris thought for a long moment. Come with me. She led him outside. To the old SETI facility where her father had heard the first signal. Now a museum. Preserved exactly as it had been 40 years ago. Here, she said. Right here. I was 6 years old, singing Twinkle, Twinkle while my father worked. The signal came. He could have reported it immediately. Changed the world that night. Why didn't he? Because he loved me more than glory, more than recognition, more than being the man who made first contact. She moved to her father's old console. He chose to protect me, to protect all of us, by preparing in silence. And you, Michael asked, do you think he chose right? I spent 20 years angry that he missed my childhood, my wedding, my mother's funeral, all because of his obsession. Iris pulled up the old star charts, 40 years of intelligence gathering. Then I understood. He didn't miss my life because he didn't care. He gave up his life so I could have one, a life where I chose my own path, not one forced on me by Galactic Empire. She turned to Michael. Your mother made the same choice. Duty over survival, the many over the few. That's not easy. It's not fair. But it's what heroes do. They pay the price so others don't have to. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then, will you help me teach me what my mother knew so I can pass it on? Yes. Until Iris gripped his shoulder. And someday when you're ready, you'll teach others. And the legacy continues. Defenders becoming teachers. Teachers raising defenders. An endless chain of people choosing to protect instead of conquer. They stood together in the old facility, where everything had begun, where Malcolm Hawthorne had heard the stars and chosen silence, where Iris had sung nursery rhymes innocent of the future her father was building, where it all started. Colonel James Thaddeus Fletcher walked among the headstones, 58 years old now, officially retired from active duty for 5 years, though he still consulted on defensive strategy. Gray hair, lines deep in his face, body that ached from decades of military service, but still standing. He stopped at a simple grave marker, fresh flowers already placed by someone who'd arrived earlier. Dr. Malcolm Hawthorne, 1963 to 2028. Beloved father, he listened to the stars. Fletcher knelt, placed his hand on the stone. We did it, old friend. Council reformed integration protocols. 6 species independent, 12 more preparing. The galaxy is changing because you chose to listen instead of panic. Wind rustled through the cemetery. Peaceful. Quiet. Iris is teaching at the academy. Your daughter. Brilliant like you. Stubborn like you. She's passing on everything you built. The intelligence. The patience. The understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. He pulled a photograph from his pocket. Michael and James Ashford. Now young men. One in Space Force dress blues. One in academic robes. Nora's boys grew up strong. Good men. They honor her every day. James joined the Space Force. Wants to be like his mother. Michael's teaching. Wants to build instead of fight. Both are right. Both are necessary. Fletcher stood. Joints protesting. Age catching up. 23 names on the wall now. Memorial service every year. The world knows now 3 years since declassification. They understand what those people died for. What you died for. His voice grew thick. You were right, Malcolm. The secret was worth keeping. Until the world was ready. He turned to leave. Stopped. I kept the promise, Malcolm. I protected Iris. I defended Earth. I chose restraint when I could have chosen destruction, just like you taught me. His voice cracked. I miss you, brother. Every day. The grave marker didn't answer. It didn't need to. Fletcher walked through the cemetery, past rows of headstones marking soldiers who died in conflicts the world knew about. Wars that made history books. Battles that earned monuments. 3 years ago, the 23 who died defending Earth from the first contact war had been honored with their own memorial. Not here at the new National Space Defense Memorial in Colorado. But their names were known now. Their families could finally grieve publicly. The world had been shocked when the truth came out. 30 years of secret preparation, 8 space battles, 23 casualties. An entire hidden war fought while people went about their daily lives. But Fletcher had been right to wait. The world needed to know the galaxy existed before they could understand what had been sacrificed to keep Earth free. Fletcher reached his car, paused, looked up at the sky. Clear night, stars brilliant against velvet darkness. Somewhere up there, ships moved between worlds. Species choosing freedom. Independence movements spreading. A galaxy slowly learning that sovereignty wasn't granted by empire. It was earned by capability and defended by courage. All because one man heard the stars talking 40 years ago and chose to listen. Fletcher stood before the memorial wall, touching each name, remembering faces, voices, stories. Colonel, he turned. Michael Ashford stood at attention, Space Force precision, his mother's bearing. At ease, Lieutenant, Fletcher smiled. You don't have to salute me. I'm retired. You'll never be retired, sir. Michael approached the wall, touched his mother's name. I wanted to thank you for keeping your promise, for telling the world her story. She deserved to be remembered. Yes, but it's more than that. Michael pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it, inside a pair of silver wings, pilot insignia. Mom's, she wore them her first day at the academy. I want them added to the memorial. So everyone who comes here remembers she was more than a name. She was a pilot, a mother, a hero. Fletcher took the wings, felt their weight, 30 years of memories flooding back. I'll have them mounted beside her name. Thank you, sir. They stood together, old soldier and young officer, bound by grief, by honor, by the understanding that some sacrifices echo across generations. Michael, Fletcher said quietly, your mother asked me something the day before she died. What? She asked if what we were doing mattered, if dying in secret, protecting people who'd never know if that was worth it. He looked at the young man. I told her yes, but I didn't know for certain, not then. And now Fletcher gestured at the memorial, at the academy beyond, at the galaxy slowly changing overhead. Now I see you, your brother, Iris. Students from a dozen species learning to defend themselves. 6 worlds that won independence because Earth proved it was possible. He smiled. Now I know. Your mother's sacrifice mattered. All of them mattered. They didn't die in vain. Michael's voice was thick. She'd be glad to hear that. She knows, son. Wherever heroes go when they rest, she knows. Iris stood at her father's old console, equipment preserved as museum pieces. The same chair Malcolm had sat in 40 years ago. The same monitors that had first detected alien signals. She typed a message into the transmission array, broadcasting on frequencies only a few species would recognize. Encrypted, but welcoming. This is Dr. Iris Hawthorne Earth, broadcasting on behalf of the Sentinel Network, all species seeking independence with dignity. We're here, we're listening, and we're ready to help. She paused, looked at a photograph on the desk, her father, smiling, holding her as a child, before the weight of secrets, before the sacrifice. I understand now, Dad, why you gave up everything, why you lied for 30 years, why you died without recognition. She touched the photograph. You gave your life so I could choose mine. That's love. That's sacrifice. The transmission array beeped. Response incoming? From a distant star system. Coordinates matching the Ilthani sector. Oppressed by Dominion cultural integration for decades until the reforms 3 years ago. The message was simple. Professor Hawthorne, we've won our independence review, but we need guidance. Can you teach us how to prepare, how to maintain sovereignty? Iris smiled, typed her response. Yes, we can teach you, the way my father taught us, with patience, with intelligence, with the understanding that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Welcome to the Sentinel Network. She sent the message, leaned back in her father's chair, looked out at the desert where it all began. The sun set behind distant mountains. orange and gold bleeding across the sky. And as darkness fell, stars emerged, brilliant points of light stretching to infinity. Somewhere among them, ships moved, species prepared, independence movements gathered strength, all because 40 years ago a father heard his daughter singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and chose to protect her future. Iris began to sing, softly, the same song from 4 decades past. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Outside in the gathering darkness, a young woman approached the facility, 18 years old, dark hair, determined eyes. Diana Kim, daughter of Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the pilot who died intercepting plasma fire over Beijing. 4 million lives saved by one woman's sacrifice. She entered quietly, found Iris at the console. Professor Hawthorne, Iris turned, smiled. Diana, I wasn't expecting you. I wanted to see where it started, Diana said. Where your father heard the first signal, where everything changed. This is it, just an old facility in the desert, nothing special. It's special now. Diana moved to the window, stared out at stars emerging in the twilight. Professor, you said I could audit your class next semester. I want to do more than audit. I want to enroll, full-time. Learn what my mother knew, what your father knew, how to defend without destroying, how to prepare without panicking. Iris felt emotion tighten her throat. Your mother would be proud. I hope so. She died when I was 8. I barely remember her. But Colonel Fletcher tells me stories about her courage, her precision, her choice to put others first. Diana's voice strengthened. I want to be like that, like her, like your father. Defenders who remember that strength without restraint is just violence. Then you're accepted, full scholarship, starting next semester. Diana smiled, turned back to the stars. Do you think they knew your father, my mother, the 23? Do you think they knew their sacrifice would mean this much? Iris thought about her father's last words, keep them free, about Nora Ashford choosing to stay at her post, about all the small choices that became history. I think they hoped, and hope when you're willing to die for it becomes something more. She stood beside Diana, 2 daughters of heroes, looking at the same stars. It becomes legacy. They stood together as night deepened, as stars multiplied overhead, as the galaxy turned its slow wheel. And in the silence between heartbeats, both women heard it. Not alien transmissions, not military communications, just the quiet hum of the universe, infinite and eternal, waiting for those brave enough to listen, waiting for those strong enough to choose mercy when they had the power to destroy, waiting for humanity, the watchers, the defenders, the silent guardians who learned that the greatest victories are the ones that don't require war. Iris began typing again. New lesson plans, new students, new species to teach. The work continuing, the legacy spreading. Diana watched, learning already, understanding that defense wasn't about weapons or tactics, it was about people. Choosing to protect instead of conquer. Choosing restraint instead of revenge. Choosing hope instead of fear. Professor, she said quietly, thank you for continuing what they started. Thank you for being here to receive it. Iris saved her files, stood. Come on, I'll show you the memorial wall. Your mother's name, right there beside the others. Heroes who died so billions could choose. They walked together into the night. Behind them, the old console continued monitoring the stars. Listening, always listening, because the watchers never slept, and the galaxy was still learning. That humanity's greatest strength wasn't in our weapons or our ships or our tactics, it was in our choice to use them only when we must, and to show mercy when we could destroy. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was why 23 names on a wall mattered more than 1,000 victories, because they proved that humanity was more than just another species fighting for survival. We were people who remembered that every enemy was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's hope for the future. And that made all the difference. The stars continued their slow dance overhead, watching, waiting, bearing witness to the species that had heard them talking, and chose to answer with wisdom instead of fear, with preparation instead of panic, with mercy instead of vengeance. The watchers, silent, eternal, free.